All right, good peoples. Bruce back at you with YIELDMAX, Fresh, Misty, SMCY, Winner, and a few others. XYZY. Boy, the square really paid well. All right, let's jump into this. So, declare today on 6/4. If you don't own something and you want the dividend, buy today 6/4. Tomorrow it trades ex dividend, which means you no longer get the dividend, right? So if you buy it on 6/5, you will not get paid until next month. Okay. And if it's a weekly, until next week. Okay. And the pay date is Friday, June 6th. All right, let's jump in here. I'll just run through my order. Aptly had estimate 36.5. It was a little high. They paid 31.19 on Mr. Aptly or Ms. Aptly. I was under on AMZY at a 47 for AMZY, and they hung a 59. Call it 60. Good job, AMZY. All right, very close on this one. Diso. I had 57.5 and they paid 56. We'll call it 55.88. Way off on XYZY. Oh my, 111 yield. Now they show slightly less. What do they actually show on here on their sheet? 109.59. But I'm basically doing times 13 on the pay and then dividing by the price. So you know what it is? The price changes slightly from the time that I showed the weekend price. They're now showing the more current price yesterday. So that's the slight difference when I'm showing yield, guys, from what you see on the sheet. It's fairly inconsequential, but if somebody happens to notice, that's what's happening. All right, so still going the same order. AIYY at 29 and a half, they paid 32. I think you all want to see Misty. I said they would not pay a new low. I just didn't think they would. They had a 133 in, and they must have listened to me. I don't know. So they paid 147. I'm very happy with that pay based on what they pulled in only. Okay, SMCY. So that was an 88.72. Not a particularly well for Misty. It's not huge, but it's still darn good on a 21, $22 stock, even a cheaper stock some of you bought recently. Okay, SMCY 160. I had them at 189. I thought they would pay even more. So that's a fairly big drop off. Their last May was 141. All right, YQQQ. Boy, I was off on. I had 47 cents and they paid 27 cents, 26 and a half. Same thing here, although I'm happy. I'm always happy if I'm under. So, I've done some stuff on Winner recently. So that's pretty awesome for them to pay 307. I just thought, okay, Winter hadn't been performing as well. They paid good the first time to get people's attention. Probably going to fade back, still being $2. Boy, did they show me 307 and a quarter for 100% yield. All right, so let's look at all of the weeklies now, guys. YMAX, I had 19, they paid 17. I can, this YMAG thing with looking back at the previous, Group C. I should just figure out an average and run with that. But here, that's what they did. Look at this. Maybe it's every other. I know these aren't relevant because on my weeklies, they're all over the place. If I track weeklies here, I can't slide them over. It's complicated, guys, because every week they pay. So they're in group A, they're in group B, they're in group C, and they're group D. I'm used to just moving over what the previous month was and comparing. All right, guys, Lethargy. I had 43. They paid almost, well, 46 and a half, almost 47. Good job, Leffigy. Caputi, I was close on both these. I had 28.7. They paid 29.7. On S Diddy, I had 23.5. They paid almost 22. I was a little over on Q Diddy. I had 28 cents. They paid 23. Boy, R Diddy, that's been a high payer. They dropped to the low payer of the group. They only paid 21. I had them at 31. I'm happy about Ulti. I know a lot of you have it. It's a popular one. I had 8.5. It said somewhere 8.5 to 9, but I didn't think for sure they'd go 9.5. Good job, Ulti. Chippy, semis. I had 38. They paid close to 35. All right, guys. So that's it. I'm sure some of you are excited with your MSTY payment because, I mean, I know everybody wants $2 all the time, guys, but it's a $22 stock, and they need to have a big month in collecting money. It's getting better, but we shall see. All right, that's what I got for you. Let me see. Hang on. I got to do a couple more things here. All right. So next week on Group A, and also I wanted to hit you guys up on winter. This is something that I did a video on is, how to hedge MSTY. And there was a lot of discussion around it. I put a lot of thought into it. And what I thought might work didn't. For those of you that just wanted to get the results, go ahead and leave. I'm going to talk about pairing. I'm going to talk about going long, like a MSTY and pairing it with a winner, or, a Tesla and crash, or, NVIDIA and dips. Traditionally, when I studied and analyzed it, the common sense was if it's flat, a little bit up, a little bit down, pairing isn't bad. You can make income on both. Where one clearly outperforms the other, and it's not really that much protection, is when it has an outsized move. So, when you're in winter, what you want is if MSTR crashes, right, goes way down, you want to make sure you got gains. Well, under the current thing, even with the spreads, not as bad as before without the spreads, they get run by. So on the upside, you have to take MSTY on the upside. If MSTR explodes, you're only going to capture 33 to 45%. Now, if you place those spreads better, you might get 50 or 60% of that upside. And the same thing applies on the inverse. So you buy winner, you buy puts, right? But you buy them out of the money a little ways. And what happens is, let's say that MSTR just goes down 30% in a week. Then you don't pick all that gain up in winter. You might pick up 10% of that gain, not the 30, or you may get 13, 14, 15%, right, of the 30%, right? So maybe you get half, you get a third to a half in these big outside moves. So everybody thinks they're protected. And what happens is the one that did lousy, your NAV will be crushed and you will go 95% down with it. On the other one, on the one that you're expecting to go up 95%, not going to happen. Just does not happen the way the funds are structured today. So when I went into comparing winter, I said, I don't think this will be the approach. If you go out to do options and just buy a put or put on a credit spread, a put credit spread, or even a call bear spread, essentially, you limit your loss, but you limit your gain. And the premiums on MSTR are just out of sight. That's how MSTY can do what it does and generate all that income for the last 15 months in that fund, because MSTR is volatile and it generates a lot of premium. So when you try and protect yourself and buy puts, you literally think about this. I summarized it. If you went out and bought a leap put 8 months, a year, a leap means into the next calendar year. Okay. So if you went out and bought puts, the premium that you would have to pay, okay, in order for that position to make you money. So let's say I go out and I buy a put and it's $8 and it's 12, 13 months out. For it to get to $16, so I double my money, right? Do you know how far down MSTR has to go percentage wise in that stock? 80%. That's not normal, guys. Normal, you can get, something could go down 30% and you double your money in options. And it's just the premium. The premium is all over those puts. And I mean, the calls are high also. And so it doesn't work when you try MSTR. Then I said, okay, well, I'll do it on MSTY, right? I'll buy puts on MSTY. And you know what? It was hardly any better. Same scenario. 75, you have to go down 75 in MSTY% in order to double. So that risk, that trade-off risk isn't worth it. Because if it doesn't pan out and you're using it as insurance, you're paying $8 a share. That money is all gone. You bought the put and it didn't happen. Well, if you buy a $22 stock and you lost $8, that's a lot. That's like think about this for a year. Think if you've got a $500,000 house. Sure, you might have a fire premium cost you 2 or 3,000. I'm not up to speed with what current, although it's always been expensive. Fire used to be cheap, but now if you're in flood and earthquake and all that. But think if that insurance was 50 or 60% of what the house cost. So if you had to go spend even 35, if you had to go spend 200,000 on a $500,000 house to insure it for a year, nobody would buy insurance. It just doesn't make any sense. So that was what was going on. And surprisingly, when I looked at winter with those high premiums, its ability to make money was a little bit better, but it doesn't always translate into match pairs, always giving you the right protection. So I think winter appears to be, WNTR appears to be the best fit for hedging and the fact that it throws off some income. So you have to say to yourself, you bought it as insurance and MSTR just keeps trucking on up and you get a NAV loss in winter. Maybe you lose 40% of what you bought winter for, but half of that 40% gets covered in premiums that you're earning, or maybe 3/4. Then it's not so bad. So it's looking like a viable. I need to run it on the other pairs, do backwardization and compare. But so far on winter, it does seem to be the best way. Some people say, why hedge? BTC's going to the moon. Yeah, I hear that. And it will eventually. But it doesn't mean it won't have some nasty pullbacks. Okay, guys, that's all I got for you. Wanted to get that out. Enjoy your yields. I know a lot of you love it, and especially the weeklies for a lot of you guys. All right, bye for now.